But every time the sprinkler system turned off, the water filled up the basement. We didn't know it. I like that. I like that.
Good evening, and I'd like to welcome you all to the, probably the first, I'm not sure, but I believe it is the first All-City Task Force meeting. Can you, can you hear?
Static
You
now,
just
so
about have to
she's
touch
living and
it.
working in Livingston.
If you all would stand
Also hired part-time.
and look over in the corner, the northwest corner. Remove your hats if you would. Now imagine looking up at the mountain, looking at the United States flag, flying against the beautiful backdrop of the Montana sky. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You guys have a good imagination. I like that. Our panelists this evening, starting right next to me, is Pastor Dave. Dave Thompson, Pastor and Police Chaplain. Jennifer Owen from the Billings City Council. Don Jones, County Commissioner. Darren Old Coyote, Tribal Government. Stacy Zinn, retired U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency. And Katie Weston, who's an employee with the Department of Corrections and serves as a deputy chief in the Billings region. So with that, I'd like to go over a few ground rules. The premise this evening: have we behaved ourselves into our current situation? And you're probably saying, what in the heck is he talking about? We all know we have problems. Fentanyl, opioids, marijuana, alcohol, anything to make you feel good, and I mean that sincerely. A lot of people are addicted to adrenaline. We all have our addictions. This evening, though, we seek the answer to that question: how do we behave ourselves out of this situation? How are we going to get out? We know we can't go back, but we need to get out of this situation and try something new and move forward. Each panelist this evening will have 10 minutes of uninterrupted time to speak based on their respective capacities and their life experiences. Their life experiences concerning the safety in our community. Each of the panelists have been asked to also be very blunt, honest, unburdened, and transparent with what they tell us. To the panelists, I will hold up my hand, but I also have a timer that will go off at the 10-minute mark. And I ask that you not have me ask you to sit down. So with that, I am going to turn the mic over to Pastor David.
Well, good evening, and thank you for being here and inviting me to speak. I'm Dave Thompson. Have been in the community for about 14 years. I came to Montana in 1989. Without being in Montana before, I was born and raised up in Alaska and came to Montana State as a junior. Met my wife, who's from Terry, Montana, eastern Montana, and lived several different places, and then we settled here about 14 years ago. We live up in the Heights, and I pastor a First Presbyterian Church, 13th and Pauley. Also have served as a police chaplain for the last 8 years with Chief St. John and the police department, and certainly have a high regard for the community. My wife is a middle school teacher at Castle Rock. Our daughter is a middle school teacher at Castle Rock, and so I'm here tonight to represent the faith aspect and but also the community aspect as well. I wanted to usually have some props, and so tonight I want to talk about kind of the building blocks of the community and what I see as some of the fundamental building blocks in our community. The first thing, and shouldn't come as any surprise since I'm a pastor, but it's a building block of faith. And I think a community that is built on faith and a family that's built on faith is a strong component of that. And so that's going to be the first thing that I wanted to lay down. The second one is a sense of hope. As a chaplain, I see a lot of people without hope, without any kind of purpose or direction in life. And if we can instill in people through faith some hope and something to look forward to, I think we have a stronger and better community. So I wanted to include that in the building blocks. The third block is a block of morality, a sense of right and wrong, and we often learn that through our faith, or we learn that through having a hope. I learned that through parents and Sunday school teachers growing up, and there is a sense of right and wrong, but unfortunately a lot of people don't have that anymore. The next building block is an important one. It's a building block of respect. It's respecting people, it's respecting property. We've had things stolen off of a trailer. We have to lock everything. People are not respectful of property anymore. How many of you lock your house at night? How many of you lock your cars? It used to be, growing up even in Billings, I heard a lot of people, we never locked anything. Now we lock. Our son has a mowing business, and so we lock down the weed eaters and we lock down the lawnmowers. When we even stop for lunch for 30 minutes to an hour, we've had stuff stolen right off of our trailer. We've had stuff stolen out of our church parking lot. And so I think that sense of respect comes in a building block. Do we respect each other, and most importantly, do we respect ourselves? So I think those are the four pillars of a community that provides a foundation: hope and faith and morality and respect. And then going up from there is the building block of family, and that's based upon that. There's a lot of kids these days that are not raised with mom and dad and not raised with that family unit. Fortunately, myself and a lot of you had that at our advantage, but there's programs out there and help out there that can encourage that. The next building block is school. I know the schools are involved in helping kids learn moral skills and helping them gain some identity and understanding to what it means to live in a community. Unfortunately, a lot of kids find their way out of school, and I think school is an important part to graduate and have that building block. The next thing is a building block of work. How important it is to work. It's a good thing to work, and there's lots of work in our community. My parents taught me at an early age to work. I was a commercial fisherman in Alaska during my college years. Worked very hard up there, and I got done at night working, and I was tired, and I went to bed. And I got up the next morning, and I worked again. And there's something I think sometimes missing in our community when it comes to a work ethic. And that's the next building block, next one up. And the last building block, this might surprise you as a pastor, but having some fun. And I think it's important to have fun and enjoy life and to have some entertainment in our lives. Unfortunately, what happens is a lot of people build their life on this, and then everything else tends to come from that. So what happens if you take one of these building blocks away? If you take faith away or morality away, or and all of a sudden you have things begin to fall apart, and you have a community that begins to fall apart as well. I know that we're here to solve issues, not just to point to issues. I pray a lot for our community. I pray a lot for our police department and first responders. I think prayer is very important. I think spirituality is very important. And whatever that higher power may be, whether it's Christianity or Native American spiritualism or Hindu or Buddhism, I think that's an important aspect of who we are and the community in which we live into and how important that is. we had one of the kids involved in that accident where 4 of the kids died down on First Avenue South. She was part of our youth group, Zoe Har. She was 14 years old, and I had her funeral just after Christmas, and a great family. She was making some bad choices. I knew Zoe very well, gave her lots of rides back and from her house up in the Heights and to youth group and back and forth. And I told her many times, I said, Zoe, your life is going to end in destruction. You're not making good decisions. And she's like, I can do whatever I want. You can't be the boss of me. And I said, Zoe, we got to find some ways to rein you in and give you some help and support. And I think about Zoe and think about others in our community. How can we help find them support and find them? There's a lot of organizations. There's a lot of groups that meet and provide help in Billings. There's a lot of organizations that help people. But how can we do that? And I think through churches and youth group, we invite lots of kids to come to youth group. Not everybody comes. We invite people to come and hear about a God that loves us and gives us some moral boundaries. But not everybody comes. But that's my prayer, and I think it's important to have a spiritual aspect at these meetings because it's greater than just what can we do from a community standpoint, but what can we do perhaps from a spiritual standpoint to help people and understand who they are and they're loved and they're cared for. A lot of the calls I'm involved in with the Billings Police Department are drug, alcohol related. And there are a lot of overdose. And a lot of these things began at an early age, say 14, 15, and 16. If we can head some of that off at an early age, I think we would be better off in our community and help some of these young people make good choices and stay in school and realize that there's some moral limits and there's some benefits of that. And so that's my prayer for the community. There's a great verse in the Bible that says, where there's no vision, the people perish. And I think about that quite often, where there's no vision or no direction or no hope, the people perish. And my prayer for Billings is that we find a place and we can provide a place where there's hope for people and encourage them. So 10 minutes for a pastor is not a long time, but am I pretty close? All right, awesome. I saw the nod off in the congregation out here, and I figure my 10 minutes is up. I do have to leave a little early today. Tonight I've got a meeting at 7, so if you see me walk out, it's not because I'm mad. I just have another meeting at 7 to get to. So thank you for inviting me and being a part of this group tonight, and certainly our prayers for the community and those involved.
Got to be smarter than the mic. The mic's pretty intelligent. Our next panelist is Jennifer Owen, City Council Person. Jennifer?
Thank you, Doug, and thank you to the task forces for putting on this event. I'm a former task force chair myself. The Heights Task Force, really just want to commend all of you who give your time to work with your neighborhoods and advocate on behalf of what's good in our community. As Doug indicated, my name is Jennifer Owen. I am a city council member who represents the Heights. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be a part of local government because it's the government that touches our lives every day. The topic of public safety is an enormous one, so I'm going to try to hit a couple of key topics. But there's obviously a huge amount that we could discuss all night long. So I want to start by just giving you a little bit of background to put my comments in context. I'm an attorney by training and born and raised. This Billings is home, born and raised here. But the work that I do as a lawyer, I serve as a guardian ad litem for abused and neglected children in our CPS system. And before that, I was executive director of the Head Start program in our community. So for the last decade or so, I spent a lot of time seeing the significance of trauma that children in this community are experiencing. And so when we talk about public safety, at least when I talk about it, I think about it through the eyes of children, because that's where I spend most of my time. And what I can tell you is that what our children are experiencing in our community, even in Billings, I raised my child here. I think this is a great place to raise children, but for a significant portion of the population, what young children are facing in this community is inexcusable, and it has lifelong consequences. And what I want you to think about tonight is urgency. because we have to attack the trends that we see in our community with urgency. If we don't, we risk incubating for generations the cycles of trauma and violence in our community that we see now. We have to intercept trajectories today, or we will raise the next generation of both criminals and victims. And our community deserves better. So when I think about the initiatives that we need to take on, not only in city and county government, you'll hear from Commissioner Jones here in a moment, this is a community effort. Because the majority of what we're seeing, the roots of crime and public safety issues in our community are interpersonal issues. Assaults are between partners and family members. They are child endangerment cases. Substance abuse and mental health come from brokenness and broken families. I will tell you, I've been in government a long time. I've done government at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. No government initiative will ever replace the family in addressing public safety and preventing crime in the future. So if we don't have strong families as the foundation of our community, if we have public policy that doesn't encourage and support families, we will struggle. But we will never, as governmental officials, be able to replace what you all can do as neighbors, as friends, as role models, as mentors. So when we talk about tackling public safety in this community, it has to be a community effort. This isn't something where we can just go home at the end of the day, close our door, and hope that somebody else fixes it. Because what we're going to have to realize, what I have realized over the last decade, is that each one of us has the opportunity to come alongside a vulnerable child, an at-risk family, a veteran who's hurting, and be that relational partner. And those are the things that will begin to intercept and prevent the cycles of crime and violence that we're seeing in the community. There are some things that we've worked on at City Council that I'm proud of, and I think they're things that you should know about. We have a scourge of family violence in this community. Half of the assaults in the community are family violence related. So we've worked on that. We've asked our police chief to think about how we handle domestic violence cases. We've challenged our city and county attorneys to tackle this together. We're working on a family justice center to bring people together. We know this has to have a priority. We've invested in expanding public health programs that identify families at risk of domestic violence and come alongside those very youngest children to try to prevent that. There are things that your government is doing, but we need you. We need every one of us. If I'm going to be candid, and that's the challenge that's in front of us, we should acknowledge that many of our community leaders, myself included, live very comfortable lives. It's easy for most of us to go home to safe homes with plenty of food and heat and water. And that influences how we make our decisions. So we need you, all of you, who are the eyes and the ears on the streets, who see children and families who are hurting, to come be a part of the solution, to push us harder to bring the level of urgency that this demands. Because our community needs comprehensive public safety solutions. And so what do those look like? Because we don't just get the privilege of coming up here and naming problems. It looks like addressing our youth systemically. We can work and volunteer to make our schools better. I see our school board members in the back. We have a new superintendent who's tackling those challenges. We need churches, we need youth groups who are being a safe haven for children who are at risk. But at the end of the day, what I hear most, certainly what we all saw when we had the round of homicides last October, was where are the parents? Why aren't they being held accountable? What is going on with these young people and guns? But what do we do as a community if there are no parents? When kids are couch surfing, when they're in a foster care system that is fundamentally and systemically broken, folks, it's going to come down to us, not as government, but as neighbors, to look for those kids who need us and be a mentor, be a volunteer, be a coach, be a safe person. I cannot stress enough, your government can do better, but we can't do it without you. We will never replace the love and the generosity and the kindness that comes from one neighbor, one pastor who prays for children, one coach who steps up and takes an interest. These things may seem like feel good, but they are evidence-based strategies to intercept silent cycles of violence in the community, the types of violence that we are seeing. Because what are we seeing? We're seeing a spike of young people with guns. I have children on my CPS caseload as young as 10 and 11 with probation officers. Statistics show that in the community in Yellowstone County, most children will be offered drugs or alcohol for the first time sometime between the ages of 9 and 11. These are young kids who need you to be there as a part of the solution. We need better policing, we need better prosecution, we need a jail expansion. We know those things are known. What I want to challenge you to do tonight is to step outside the comfort zone. To A, ask yourself, how can I be a part of this because you can? And B, how can I demand more of my elected officials to bring the level of urgency that this community needs? How can we, as all of us sitting up here representing different institutions, come together with a comprehensive approach that lets go of the fear of admitting that we could do better, because we can. We have to move past it. Every part of the criminal justice system in this community needs to improve. There are things we've done on city council. We've ordered an evaluation of our local justice system. We're working in a multidisciplinary manner to make the case to the public for a jail expansion and a more efficient criminal justice system in the community. There are things that are happening, but we need each and every one of you to take control of your neighborhood, of the school where your children go, of a volunteer project, and be a part of this, because we cannot and should not do it alone. We need a community of citizens who are working together. And I'm excited to talk to you about some of those opportunities you're going to hear. You're going to hear over the next few months an effort to rapidly catalyze the number of mentors that are available in this community for our most at-risk youth. Partnering with the agencies that are already doing it to expand the services that we have and reach more children. Because with 200 mentors, we could clear wait lists of organizations in this community. Imagine that. Imagine if a family said, my child is struggling. They are at risk. I need a mentor. I need another adult. I need a partner. I'm a single mom. I can't do it all. What if we said, there's no wait? We've got someone trained and ready to go right now to come alongside you and be a prevention factor. Imagine what our community would look like if we were able to rapidly respond to the needs before they escalated into violent crime. Because that's what we have to focus on. How do we get there first? How do we as a community, government, nonprofits, individuals, churches, schools, how do we get there first? Now, why? Why the urgency? Well, because we don't want to live in a community that's dangerous, but because we know from biology that when children are raised in violent and dangerous environments, including the home environment, it wires their brain differently. This isn't just about incubating or demonstrating behaviors. It's about changing the physiology of how the brain works, how children make decisions, how they regulate their emotions, how they respond to conflict. These things start to become hardwired if we don't intercept sooner rather than later. So, how am I doing?
Jennifer, 42 seconds.
Perfect. Let's bring it home. So here's what I want to leave you with tonight. I want you to know that your city council is working on this, and we're working with our county and state partners to do more and do better, but we can't do it alone. So please be a part of this conversation. Please consider tonight as you walk out, what could you do? Can you catalyze a church ministry? Can you volunteer in your child's school? Can you consider becoming a youth member? It's almost baseball time. Who's ready to coach some Little League? Ask yourself as you walk out tonight, how can I come alongside the most vulnerable children in the community? Because there is no more effective crime prevention strategy. And if you can help us prevent the crime, then I know our police officers can enforce the law. So that's what I will ask you to do tonight. Join us as a community prevention effort, and we will change how public safety looks in this community. Thank you.
I think they all have a pretty good 10-minute timer on them. Without further ado, Yellowstone County Commissioner Don Jones. Don?
And I am going to sit down. I got a total knee replacement, so if I stand up, I'll probably fall down at some point. That wouldn't be pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and sit down. I'd much rather be standing up than sitting down. You know, I always love listening to Paul Harvey, and one of the things that he said is self-government won't work without self-discipline. And just taking that back to the breakdown of the family, when you hear this previous superintendent of schools preach that all the time, it's as far as teachers and everything else, it's the breakdown of the family that was the problem. Our current superintendent has actually said that too. And we've got to get our arms around this as far as the breakdown of the family. The pastor talked about it, the city council member talked about it, and it is really something that we somehow have to get our hands around it. I'm going to jump on. You brought up a thing, so I wasn't going to actually talk about this. But I have a next door neighbor who is a grandmother who has 8 grandkids that she's raising. Her daughter actually passed away from cancer. And so she went out and she's got all the kids there. Now 8 grandkids, 3 sets of twins. She had 6 kids in diapers at one time. And she is a rock star. It is amazing on how she does this. And it was kind of crazy because her kids are all around. You can imagine. My front yard is part of their front yard. They don't have grass in their front yard because the kids are always outside playing, which is awesome. And most of the neighbors were real accepting of them and really good with them. But we had a couple neighbors that were complaining about how, they were running around. And I'm going, step up. Don't complain. Be part of the solution. And one of them actually started talking to one of the little boys, and he was like, he's a pretty neat little kid. And it was like, don't sit there and yell at him to get out of your yard. Start interfacing with him and help this grandmother who's raising these 8 kids and is a rock star. And I can't even imagine how she does it. I had 3 kids, and that was, they're all grown now, but that was plenty for me, for her to do the meals and everything else. And we barbecue out every once in a while and different things like that. But people will bring them. One day, one of the neighbors brought down pizzas and said, here, scheduled it with her and brought down pizzas. And another neighbor worked at a pizza place and came out. But I think that's where you need to be looking at those neighborhood kids that don't necessarily have those role models out there. And I love seeing them in the morning, and they'll say, hi, Don. And I'm saying, hi, are you guys going to be rock stars today? Yeah. And I mean, just trying to boost them up and say, hey, let's be great here. I got into this. I owned a restaurant at one point. It was kind of interesting, and I really hadn't been around in this world before. And I worked at Motorola at one point, and a PO was a purchase order. And I had one of the gals say, yeah, I need to meet with my PO. And I was like, what on earth? But it was one of Katie's people. I was like, a purchase order? What on earth is that? But they'd have multiple charges against them that never made it through the system. And that's something that they're working on really hard as far as trying to get everything going. Jennifer's on that committee that's actually working at streamlining. There's some really good things going on in the system right now to try to make things go faster. One of the downsides is our jail is full, and that is a county-ran jail. And we're really looking hard. This isn't really the solution from the breakdown of the family, but we do have bad actors out there. We actually have a youth services center too. So we have the jail, and then we have our youth services center that has 24 beds. And our director is actually retiring, and there was just an article in the paper about her just recently, and she talked about how from the beginning, when she was there, the crimes were nothing compared to what she's seeing now. And and we're seeing a lot more mental problems. We see that in the jail too. Our jail is not a mental facility. We get people in there that have a lot of mental problems, and we have to handle them. And it gets a little scary, but our youth jail actually has cells in it. We had a 10-year-old, and as you can well imagine, a 10-year-old putting them in a cell that has a toilet and a sink, and that's it. And it's really, when you see a 10-year-old walking down the hall in there, it's really discerning. I mean, it's not a good sight at all. And we've got to start working on getting the families and getting these kids, the volunteers and all the different programs Jennifer was talking about. We've got to try to reach out. If you have neighbors that have kids, go over and talk to them, meet the parents, find out what you can do, especially the older if you're retired. Try to reach out and find out what's going on, and don't be afraid to step up and see if there's anything you can do to help them. I think in this society, we're afraid that, you have neighbors, and we're afraid to actually reach out and see what's going on with our neighbors. And they may need some help, and they probably would be more than accepted to do it. The drug and alcohol problem in this, the marijuana, I think, is an awful thing that we ended up passing. And I know, well, I won't go there. It's the city and the county.
I'll go there.
Oh, good. That's right. You will go there. I will. In fact, I'll leave the drugs. I forgot you were there. You've got that handled. we need to get a jail, and there's an urgency there that I think the county commissioners need to step it up. We are looking at a short-term, a 72-hour holding facility, and that is to get the people off, when they come in, if they get arrested, that they'll actually have to sit in jail for up to 72 hours and see a judge before they get out. Right now, the police officer picks them up and takes them to the jail can't take them, or they might not even make it to the jail. They give them a notice to appear. Now, these are, of course, the greatest citizens in the community there are, so they're obviously going to show up for court when they get a notice to appear. And they leave. The officers are still working on writing the paperwork as they go back out. I was sitting at a table one time with an officer, and he was saying, yeah, I picked them up in North Park, nowhere to take them, and so I drop them off at South Park and hope they have a better attitude. That's not acceptable. We've got to be able to work through that, and that's really discouraging to the officers too. They, when they're out and they're risking their lives and putting everything forward, and then they're still filling out paperwork when this person is back out on the roads. That's not acceptable. So we are working on trying to get a 72-hour. This isn't the one that right now we might not fund it. I don't know. We'll figure that one out. It's coming in at about $4 million, and so we got to figure out how to do that. But then we're looking down the road for a bigger jail also that will actually add capacity so that we can hold the bad players in jail and not let them just go back out and create some more havoc. And I know the chief is here, and I think he's all in support of that. But somehow we've got to get our arms around the breakdown of the family and help any way that we can. And both the pastor and Jennifer talked about it. I'm going to give up the rest of my time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Our next panelist is Darren Oldtile. Darren?
Good evening. I think they got me in here to make everybody uncomfortable, so I'll just do that. Because whenever there's Billings Gazette, anything it's, Crow Reservation or the Cheyenne or any tribe, but at the same time, we contribute a lot to this economy here in Billings. The Crow tribe alone, I could talk about that. We have 3 per capita payments, not from the government, but from the sale of our coal. Each member gets a per capita. Where do they go when they get that per capita? They come to Billings. They come spend them at motels, restaurants, Walmart, Target. And so we're part of this economy, whether a lot of you in here agree with me or not. We're a part of this economy, and whenever there's a problem, I guess many people will say the problem is the Native Americans. So that's why I believe I'm here to speak on behalf of Native Americans, because we're part of this. And a lot of it comes from systemic racism where, a lot of people believe that, I guess just a poll in here, how many believe the Mexicans shouldn't be here? Raise their hands. People, they're raising their legs, but not their hands. How many of you believe that Orientals should be here? You're doing the same thing. How many of you believe that Indians shouldn't be here? Well, if immigration worked, I think I would, maybe me and my wife would be the only ones sitting here if it worked back 500 years ago. Immigration, we all say, go back to where you come from. We're always told that ever since I was a little kid. We're always told, go back to where you come from. Billings is actually part of our treaty. 1851, half of Wyoming, half of Montana. Goes from Three Forks all the way to Williston, North Dakota, down to Balfouche, down to Lander, Wyoming. So if you say go back to where you come from, I am standing where I come from. So never tell a native to go back to where they come from. Because they created these reservations, 2 million acres, we lost over 100 million acres, and we don't receive anything for free. That IHS healthcare that we receive, that's inadequate, is prepaid for all the lands we gave up, Columbus, Bozeman, gardener, that's prepaid health care that's inadequate. So never say we're getting everything for free, because how many people think the United States government is a free country? Free country? Because they never paid the natives for it yet. It's a free country. And the first welfare line, people say those natives are always in welfare line. The first welfare line was Columbus. What did he ask for? What did he ask for when he came? Food? Who helped him? Who taught him how to survive in this country? So we gotta think, we gotta coexist. We can't be pointing fingers, you natives, get out of here. We never said that to your forefathers. We never say it to us. We respect all of you in here. But respect works both ways. The native contribution to this world, to this country, in World War II, my grandfathers both received, my mom's dad and my dad's dad both received Congressional Gold Medals for being code talkers. We contributed a lot to this country. The land that you sit on, where all this problems happening, belonged to Crow tribe, Crow people one time, to the Crow families. Many people, like my family, comes from Columbus, in that area. The land that you're sitting on is a contribution from the Crow tribe. The war, World War II, the code talkers, the food, a lot of the vegetables that you eat were taught by the natives to the first immigrants that came here. But natives live in two worlds. We live in a first, that of being a Native American, second as a citizen of the United States. Our belief ways, our language, our norms, mores, it doesn't, like the pastor here, he's trying to put a block square, everything square. Everything we do is circle. So you can't fit that square into our life. We can't put a circle into that square. I don't say I don't believe in Christianity, but it's not who I am. We have our own beliefs. The education system that everybody grew up in is for white, middle-class Anglo-Saxon, not for Native American children. So the square that you try to fit natives into, we don't fit in that because our beliefs are different. Our clan systems are different. Our language is different. Our way of life is different. We have a treaty with the US government before Montana was even established, before Wyoming was established. And a treaty was reaffirmed just a few years ago of our hunting right, where crows can go hunt today in Yellowstone Park, where that right was before the state of Montana even existed. There's no other Crow tribe in the world. I can't jump on a plane, go find out who I am. My stories, I'm not a German, I can't go to Germany. I'm not from India. Crow tribe are right here. Our language, our culture, our belief ways are dying off. And we're trying to hang on to that, trying to preserve and perpetuate our way of life. And we struggle because of mainstream society and that square that they try to put us into. And that's why a lot of problems exist on a reservation where, you know, we don't fit into that square, and they're trying to force us into that square. But if you ever sat down a native, talk to them, you would understand a lot about where they come from, who they are, what their struggles are. They're not bad people. None of them are. If you sit them down, you'll understand. To know me is to respect me, and it works both ways. And so, in this process, what we're doing is healing the future. That's what we're trying to do here. but we got to work together. And back in 1997, I was part of a group as a youth leader. I was part of a group that traveled to Arizona to come up with a way to focus on families that were having a tough time. And we came up with Healing the Future. And from that concept, Gallup had a high percentage of vagrants. So they looked at a way to bring all the vagrants. There would be a van going around picking up all the vagrants in the evening time. And they would bring them to, not a jail, to detox them. They would put them in a cell, like kind of a padded cell. 24 hours, first offense. Second offense was 48. Third offense was 1 week. So a lot of these people were coming in 24 hours. They would stay. They would be out back to South Park, probably. The next day, they would pick them up. They're in there for 48 hours. The third day, they would be picked up. They'd be in there for 1 week. During that 1 week, 3 days into their trying to detox, the counselor would come and say, "Do you want to go to treatment?" A lot of them would say no. A lot of them would say, "Yeah, right there, just down the hall with the treatment center." And the state, the city, the tribes, and the government all came together and looked for a solution to help these vagrants. That vagrancy went down to almost zero. And a lot of these people that went to treatment, they finished out. They became the counselors. They worked. They were productive people in the community. But they all sat together. State, city, and tribe, and the U.S. government sat together. And I think that's the goal here, to sit together, to come up with solutions to all these problems that we're having in this community, because natives are a part of this community. So with that, I'll leave it at that. And talking about safety, my daughter's at Dawson. Her car was broken into this evening before we came in. We're dealing with that, so it even hits our homes as well. So with that, thank you.
Okay, so my name is Stacy Zinn. I used to run the Drug Enforcement Administration here in Montana. What does that mean? I was herding cats, grading papers, and trying to do operations. With that being said, how many of y'all know what the most abused drug here is here in Yellowstone County? Shout it out.
Alcohol.
Illegal drug.
Oh.
Okay, meth. So meth is still king here. What else do we have here in our community? We got fentanyl. What else do we have? Marijuana. But that's legal now. What else? LSD. We got our 6th and 7th graders using LSD. What else do we have? We got a little bit of Molly creeping in. It comes and flows. How many of y'all have loved ones? Yeah, ecstasy, that comes and goes too. So we have all these drugs here. And why? Supply and demand. I used to hate that when someone says, well, if you stop the demand, we would stop supplying it. And I'm referring to the Mexican cartel. So, with that being said, we've got to get down to the basics. I come from the drug side and money laundering. We've got to start talking to our kids. How many of y'all have actually sat down and said, Susie or Joe, what's happening in your school? What kind of drugs are you hearing about? And you don't have to raise your hands, but I want y'all to think about this, because I'm starting to do it more and more and more. My kid goes to a private school, and they have a vaping and marijuana problem. We need to get down to the basics. First of all, rewind a little bit. Find out what's here. Ecstasy, LSD, that comes with the social media stuff. Your meth is running rampant here. With the legalization of marijuana, and we did that. We basically told these kids, that's like drinking a Coors Light. No, the marijuana today is like drinking a scotch on the rocks. If you don't believe me, do your homework. because this is a wake-up call. Because a lot of these kids now are smoking marijuana, they're dabbing. The dab product is as high as 90%. They're putting the dab, or excuse me, they're putting the THC into their vape pens and stuff. They're taking it to the school library or into the bathroom. They're going in and they're taking a hit. They call it sucking, but they take it. But they take a hit of it, and they're taking multiple hits. You're supposed to take a hit, put it down, and walk away and wait. The problem with this is that these kids their brains are developing. And if they're smoking or taking this dab product over and over and over, we're starting to see a little bit of mental health issues. What do I mean? Kids you'll start seeing them getting really moody. Besides the adolescent portion where their hormones are going up and down, they'll start being more secluded. You'll start seeing them they change their friends. Be aware of that. Watch that. I'm starting to have more parents call me after I left DEA saying, "Hey, I'm dealing with a grandson here, and he's changing and he's doing this dab stuff. Can you educate me?" So what I'm asking y'all to do is start educating yourself about the drugs here in our community. These kids are starting to use drugs at a younger age because of social media. But this is where y'all come into play. Start asking these hard questions. What worries me, and this is not about a marijuana conversation, I'm sorry I'm getting off on a soapbox here, but the thing is though, it's going to lead to more mental health issues. We're seeing it in Bozeman. We're seeing it in other states that have legalized marijuana. We don't have the capacity right now to fix our mental health issues with those that are on the street. What's going to happen on this next generation of kids that are starting to use drugs and dabbing at a younger age? We have a crisis coming and going to hit us. Jennifer was right on the mentorship. We need to, as parents, as relatives, we need to start getting out there more. We need to start, volunteering. We need to start knowing what's happening in our schools. I had a substitute teacher come up to me just about 3 weeks ago and said that she's in one of the high schools here, and she's seen all the gang signs and she's seen the gang colors. We need to start paying attention to that. We need to start educating ourselves because it starts there. When these kids feel like they can take an inch, they're going to take a foot, and we're seeing that what's happened here. They want to feel like they belong. So if they're not getting to sports or if they're not getting to Bible study, there's an opportunity for them to get into the gangs. And we're starting to see these gang affiliates come up from different states. And it doesn't matter what color their skin are. They're coming, and they're trying to plant their flag here. And what do I mean that? We're being tested right now. If we do not do anything about it, if we keep treading water, they're going to root themselves. We're going to see the Norteños and the Sureños. We're going to start seeing Latin Kings more. We're going to see all these different individuals coming because they can. Drug prices here, it's still prominent. What do I mean? When it pays a fentanyl pill 4 cents to 25 cents to make across the southwest border, by the time it gets all the way up here, they can still sell it, make a profit, sell for $20. That's why the nefarious gangs are coming up here. Fresno Bulldogs come back and forth. We do have our reservations are being inundated with cartels. Why? Because they can.
There's no law.
Pardon me?
There's no law.
He said there's no law. So I started my career off with dealing with the cartels. I ended my career here dealing with the cartels. We just had CJNG, Nueva Generación Cartel, that was in Washington, coming across to Missoula, dropping off in Flathead, going up to Great Falls, dropping off in Rocky Boys, heading up Havre, coming down Fort Billings, and laying their head down in Wyola. Y'all will find out more information about that. It's being adjudicated. But the reason why they did it, because they know they can, because it's lawlessness. So,
Not enough police.
Absolutely not enough police. We don't have enough police here. Even though we need more support when it comes to law enforcement. We need more federal agents. We need more drug cops. I had 4 guys in the DEA for the enforcement side to cover Havre, Gallatin County, Baker, plenty would, 4 drug cops. I am former Fed, and when I hear about more feds coming to the area, I even cringe. But we do need more federal drug cops here in order to support, because we have an uptick of people coming in. That is why we gotta support our law enforcement even more so. We need to support our federal agents that have our best interests at heart, but we gotta do that. To mention our drugs, our jail. With the jail, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hit us in the wallet. It's coming, people. Again, we have more people coming into our community. If we need this temporary detention center built, then we need to fight for it, okay? Because I can tell you, just like the chief has said in the past and previously, people being arrested, by the time the paperwork is done, they're out the door. Same thing with the feds. We arrest people, they get slapped on the wrist, they're out doing it again. They're out dealing and stuff to our community. So I hate more taxes. Trust me, I hate taxes. But I can tell you right now, we're gonna have to probably pay for the jail or the detention center, and we gotta figure out how to do it. Guns. We all love our guns. I'm a gun toter. If you're keeping your guns in your vehicles, that's a no-go. Those days are over with, because they are purposely, we have people looking into the windows and trying to find. If they see a nice little purse and see a box made, gotta keep it. As a community, we gotta start cleaning up ourselves too. Okay, so no more guns in the vehicles. That's a no-go. Juvenile laws need to change, both at the federal level and at the state level. And the reason why I say that, because some of our violent crimes that's coming from these kids have been slapped on the wrist for years in, and that's got to stop. So I know our legislators are looking at that, hopefully to revamp it, but that is a given. We need to change juvenile laws, because we have given them a free pass, and look what happened, it has bitten us in the tail end. But to wrap this up, and I'm sorry, I'm known to being very vocal, but with that being said, your law enforcement, your legislators, your elected officials, we're on our toes, and we're trying to figure out how to fix this problem. But you as a community, it's y'all's community too. Neighborhood watches. You see something, report it. Ask your kids, hey, what's Sammy doing? And what kind of drugs do you hear? Be that volunteer, be that mentor. But we have to get back to the basics. No more, yo tengo mío, meaning I have my own. We have to now start acting as a community, be a community, and get back to the basics. Otherwise, we're gonna end up like, well, not like Chicago, but we're gonna be something like that. And we don't want that, we don't need it here. So I'm sorry, I kind of vomit all this negativity, but with that being said, I am so happy to see all y'all here. There's only one person that walked out in my marijuana conversation, so I'm very happy all the rest of y'all stayed here. But anyway, if you have any questions, pull me aside. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for also being here.
Thank you, Stacy. And we will have questions after the panel is done. Any audience member that has a question, feel free to ask at that point in time. Katie, you're up.
All right. Good evening, guys. My name is Katie Weston. I work with the Department of Corrections, and I apologize now because the Department of Corrections will never be as exciting as the DEA. So I'm just going to throw that out there right now. I think a lot of people are probably wondering why the Department of Corrections would be at something like this, and other than the fact that I am easily influenced, I think it's important that we belong at this table. So statewide, the Department of Corrections is the third biggest state agency. If you look at the amount of individuals that we supervise, whether it's in a custody situation or on community supervision, it is over 14,000 individuals in the state of Montana. So locally, here in Billings, the Billings Probation and Parole Office supervises over 2,500 individuals in Billings. So let's talk about the Billings Probation and Parole Office for a second. We have 41 probation officers in the probation and parole office. Of those, full-time employees, 4 of them are vacant right now because I'm having issues hiring. 4 people just started this month, and then I have another 14 that have specialized assignments, leaving me 21 probation officers for this great city at the moment. So selfishly, if anybody knows anybody looking for a job, please come and find me. So what that means is that here in Yellowstone County, which is the #1 prosecutor across the state of felony cases, producing the largest amount of felony offenders that we supervise, we have very, very high caseloads right now. If I was to be fully staffed, my staff would have a caseload of 58 people, but we sit right now, we're operating around 90 people per person. If you look back in 2022, the #1 offense for both male and female offenders was criminal possession of dangerous drugs, a simple felony that we see all of the time. So, with that offense in mind, I looked at what TJ had provided me in terms of what you guys wanted to talk about and hear about today. And really looking at the root causes and recommendations going forward for the city. I think one of the biggest issues and needs, there's 2 and they go hand in hand, is substance abuse and mental health needs. And I'm not the only one that feels this way. You'll hear it over and over again from many different people. Billings Clinic did the 2023 Community Health Needs Assessment. Mental health, substance abuse were at the very top of that list too. There is an exorbitant amount of mental health and substance abuse issues in this community. And I think that from those of us who work in this industry, there's a constant cry for more providers. And I think sometimes that message gets lost because we're always saying it. But it is the truth. We really do need more providers. And we need more providers who are willing to work with the vulnerable population. Oftentimes with treatment providers, they'll be on board for a long period of time, and it's not easy. It's a very hard job. They leave, they switch specialties, they change focus, things of that nature. And sometimes working with the vulnerable it's not the most profitable. So it's important that we continue to grow that base of substance abuse and mental health providers so we can continue to try and get people help. I think we're really, really lucky to have some really wonderful community partners that do provide these needed services right now. But sometimes one of our biggest issues is immediate access to a provider. We can have people come into our office and say right then and there, today's the day, I want help, get me help. And that opportunity doesn't come along very often, right? We can make the calls. Sometimes we can even get them the help that day. But more often than not, we can't do anything that day. It's gonna be the next day or the day after that before we can get them something. The next day, that thought with them is gone. We've lost that opportunity for many of them. We have to meet them where they're at, both literally and figuratively. And that means we need some immediate access to services. There's a lot of very, very intelligent individuals in the city right now working on what I call these really high level problems. There's a lot of task force, not just ones like are here tonight, but ones that are including, stakeholders, community members, business leaders, and law enforcement officers, really trying to come up with solutions to these problems that we've all talked about. And more importantly, trying to find ways to fund some of these solutions. But what I recommend to you as community members is that when some of these task force put forth recommendations, that you listen to them, you ask questions to weigh the cost and the benefit, and you make educated decisions if it's something that ends up on your ballot or you are in a position to help make that change. The last thing I want to talk about is something that, interestingly enough, everybody on this panel has kind of hit on in one way or another, and I promise that none of us talked earlier. But really, I phrased it as just giving someone a second chance. Like I said earlier, we supervise 2,500 individuals living in the city of Billings. And when we're dealing with that population on a daily basis, we are more than aware that when things go bad, they can go really, really bad. You hear about those things when they go bad. I get phone calls, I get emails when those things go really bad. What I want to talk about is the 2,400 people that are on supervision that are incredibly successful. And the reason that they're successful is because somebody at some point gave them a chance. These people need to have jobs. They need to have places to live. They need to have support for when they're making good decisions in the community. And sometimes that is just as easy as giving somebody a second chance. And I know that not all of those second chances are gonna work out 100% of the time, but if you're in the position to do it, please think about it. And that's all I've got for you this evening.
Thank you, panelists, and we will now go into questions and answers. If there's anybody in the audience that has a question for any or all, wave your hand, I'll bring the mic over to you. Representative.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you to my friends and colleagues over the years as we have really taken on a tremendous and passionate endeavor. And actually, I don't have a question for you. I'm just going to make a plea right now. I'm actually working with the Proud Grant, and the Proud Grant is where we're working with federal folks. I also work at the statewide level as well on reentry. And when Katie, you just said it, second chances. And so what I'm looking for are those businesses who would be willing to actually give a second chance, working through the apprenticeship program for the Department of Labor to give the second chance for those that are coming on out, and then also working with parole, working with Department of Labor, working with Department of Corrections. So if you have a business and we would really like to work with you through apprenticeship or just offering a job. And so please contact me, because that is that second chance that we need. That is doing what Jennifer has mentioned and Dawn, and it helps everyone. It helps our communities, and even for tribal lands as well. Those businesses matter. These second chances matter. And I would really love if you get a hold of me, and anybody here's got my number. So thank you very much.
Further questions or statements?
Well, I'm probably gonna piss some people off and that. Oh, hold it close. I'm probably gonna piss some people off and that. I thank you guys for what you're doing up here. I think this needs to be more brought out all the time. And we just had our Central Terry Task Force meeting. We kind of tangled a little bit, but not much, you know. Learned a few things from there. But I think the thing that, I think it was Ben Franklin who said, spare the rod and spoil the child. You know, these days of us coming up there and saying, oh, it's okay, you'll do better the next time, I think are about over. We need to start making some of these kids that are out there, punishing them for what they do. You know, I kind of made the comment that, you know, we got the Costco building down there. It's empty. Wall it off, put the young kids in there, put them in a pink uniform, make them go out and clean the parks and the streets and all that stuff instead of coddling them. And that. The city years and years ago, used to have a city jail, and we had the county jail. And that. I'm not saying to have the city jail on a full-time basis, but at least something that is temporary. When, I don't know your name, so I apologize. When you talk about volunteering, I used to be a little guy football coach. I used to coach girls, 15-year-old girls softball. This is what happened from the girls softball. But the problem is now when you go to coach, or you volunteer to coach, or you volunteer at a church, or you volunteer any place else, you got that thick a stack of paperwork that you've got to fill out. And I know little guy football, the last time I heard, there was a 48 hours worth of classes that you've got to do to be a little guy football coach. And that. So there's a lot of things for even the mentoring. I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork, and I know the church I go to, you got to fill out all this paperwork and everything. And as far as the county goes, I think you guys need to work with the city, and the city needs to work with the county to come up with a solution to place these kids. I love the 72-hour thing. I think that's a great idea. But put them in pink uniforms and make them earn and pay for what they've done, you know? And after the second time of being in this program, then you start putting one of the parents in jail and see how well that goes. You know, I think you'll have a lot more discipline going. Now, as far as the Crow tribe, I'm a member of the Blackfeet tribe. I understand everything that's going on. And the thing that hit me the most when you made the comment was, go back where you came from. The problem is, guess where the Mexicans and the Mexican cartels and everything are going into? The Crow tribe, the Blackfeet tribe, Assiniboine, the whole 9 yards. You guys need to get tougher on your enforcement of this stuff too. Yeah, no, I know there was a big stink, and I can't remember I think it was the Crow tribe. You added on a whole bunch of police officers and that. I think you need to add on a whole lot more. The Blackfeet need to do the same thing, the Assiniboine, the Cree, the whole 9 yards. They all got to get out there and start enforcing the penalties for this. You know, put them into work camps, make them earn that, you know. And DEA side, like I said, I'm gonna hit the whole works here. I think the best thing we could do is shut the damn border off. I think that is the best thing. Put the military up along the border. If not the military, put the National Guards up there and shut it completely off. The corrections, I don't have a whole lot for you because I haven't had a lot of dealings with you. So you got through on this one, so thank you.
Real quick on the border, you're absolutely correct.
Mike Kitson? Thank you, Mike.
You're absolutely correct on the border. Border needs to be closed down. The border, even though that we're so far away from it, it impacts us. You start looking at some of your restaurants that are hiring those that probably doesn't have the right credentials to be working. You start looking at the nail salons and start looking, ladies, any of y'all go and get your nail salon, walk in, look where those cameras are pointing. They're not pointing on the outside, they're pointing on the inside. That's labor trafficking. So we have a lot of that stuff taking place here, so you're absolutely right, the border. The second thing, tongue in cheek, doing that paperwork for those volunteerism, suck it up, because it's I had to do that too. It's painful, but we need more coaches like you.
I was just going to add on real quick, the city and county working together. It was actually Jennifer that came up with the 72-hour hold and a temporary trying to get something going, and we've been actually running with that. And we're still trying to get more money out of the city to help make this happen. So that's another issue, but we are working together. So
well, you know, like I said, we've got a lot of buildings in this town that are empty. And one of the things that was brought up at our task force meeting was staffing. And that. Now, whether you add on a big section to the county jail or you add on another one, you're still gonna have the same staffing problems. So in my case, I say, suck it up, because it's gonna have to be done. And the mental health side and everything, you know, to be real honest with you, this generation or the last 2 generations of kids are a lost cause. I mean, I hate to say that, but if you look at it, it's going to take us 5 more generations to pull everything back together. I mean, does the schools even have drug classes where they teach the kids? You know, when I was in junior high school, Riverside Junior High School, you know the thing that made me more adept at looking at drugs and everything was when they had the guy in the he was at the fair and he had just taken LSD and he went over and he bought a hot dog and he was looking at the hot dog and the hot dog started talking to him. I mean, that did more for me. Driver's education, same thing. Let's start showing these movies again where these guys are splattered all over the highway. The kids aren't getting it. And I hate to say it's a lost generation, but it is. You know, you can give them all the help and everything you can, and you might get 1 or 2 or 3% out of that you're gonna be able to help.
We're not educating our kids enough in the school system when it comes to drugs.
Pardon?
We're not educating our kids enough
In the school system, I mean, I have, when I was DEA, I said, whoever wants me to come in and give a drug presentation, I will, and it's free. School District 2 has been a hard nut to crack when it comes to educating our kids. Now, there's some principals out there that'll have me, matter of fact, Ben Steele just called me today, he said, hey, can you come and talk, give them 2 days? Absolutely. So if you have anyone out there in the school district that wants free drug presentations, I'll still do it. And I talk about all the drugs, I'll talk what it does to you. It's not scared straight. So it's simply fact-based. But if you had that, yeah, absolutely.
I think you need to talk to Garcia and say this needs to be a mandatory thing in school.
Yeah, but I can't say that.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll go
we have
talk to him.
we do have another question over here.
First of all, thank you. As a medically retired mental health and addictions counselor, I have worked in the wilderness programs with adolescents. And I would say that the biggest barrier was often the parenting. And I do not blame parents. I want that to be very clear. We do the best we can, and we have a lot of extra expectations on parents to be working and doing all kinds of things. I became active in street ministry. And so everything that has been said here is so true. My questions, I'm also a volunteer on the Human Trafficking Task Force. And I think I have a 3-part question. One is, as we're raising our children and as we're raising parents to be parents, how can we come alongside them? You gave us great examples, but what will inspire our communities to move forward?
To me, it's get out of your house. So many of us stay in our house and watch what's going on around them rather than getting out and becoming a neighborhood. Get out and meet your neighbors, have a barbecue, and find out there's so many kids that are being raised in single-family homes that right there in your neighborhood, if you got out and you actually did some outreach, you might find where you could actually help out. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying before, that our neighborhood has actually rallied around this grandmother to a certain extent. Some of them didn't, but they actually started looking and going, wow, these kids are actually pretty cute and they're kind of fun to talk to. But get your neighborhood going and reach out if you're not going to go volunteer at something else. So I don't know, that's, to me, we kind of lock up and we've even got worse because we're worried about crime. So it's like, shut the door, don't talk to anybody, and that little hoodlum down there. But start reaching out to that little hoodlum. They might not have anybody else to talk to except somebody from the gang and start, working with them. So, I don't know. Yes.
So that's all right. I think I'll answer that question sort of on the other side is what would have an impact? I think we need to acknowledge that there's a significant portion of our community, and especially young children, who think they don't matter. And when you choose to volunteer your time or mentor or go read to kindergartners, any of those activities show kids that they matter, that their lives are important, and that they are worth an investment. And then that conveys to them, I'm worth making better choices. They're not gonna get that when they're little, but you're laying the seeds that allow them to hear my life matters. I'm worth time and energy. I can do better. I don't have to give up. The loss of hope in our community is what will take us down. It's not crime, it's not poverty, it's none of that. It is the loss of hope for a better future. And each one of us can be a part of sharing that. I would hope that we're inspired by relative ease. It's relatively easy to spend time with a kid and make a difference in this community that will pay dividends for a very long time. It's hard to pay for a jail. It's gonna be real hard to come up with that kind of money. It's pretty easy to come up with an hour or two and change the way a child sees themselves. So I would hope that the twin side of just moving a child or a single parent or a lonely veteran or a lonely senior, people who are isolated, showing them that they're worth our time and energy, that we just love on our neighbors. And then knowing that we can make a difference in this trend, in this trajectory in our community with relatively low barriers to entry. I would hope those things are inspirational.
Thank you.
Well, I got a question. My name's Paul Scarperi, okay, and these are my neighbors. And we live in a neighborhood where we have the cookouts, where we have the get-togethers at Christmas and everything, but you guys keep talking about single parents. What happens to dual parents, where there was two parents there to watch over the kid? What about the guy in the back that says, you know, why don't you have these kids do something, do a community service to give them some respect for the community? Say, the kid says, yeah, you know, see that building over there? I cleaned that building. And the pastor said about respect, he talked about all these issues, but you guys hardly say anything about that. You talk about controlling drugs, you talk about all this. I agree with him back here. What about the parents? Why does the school have to do this stuff? Where's the parents at? I mean, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I lived for 30 years in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And I mean, there's problems there. We don't have problems here yet, but I believe they're coming. And I moved here, and it's a wonderful place. And you guys really thank you for coming here and talking about this. But address what he said back here. What about these empty buildings here? Why don't we retrofit the empty buildings? Why do we have to build new? You know, I mean, I'm sure there's city codes that have to be done for these buildings, but there's a lot of empty buildings around town. You know, and you're spending how much for the new county building down here, right? Isn't the new county building coming in? The new courthouse and everything? Isn't that correct?
City.
City? Is that city, not county? Well, what about them county buildings? I mean, why can they spend $4 million or $5 million or how many million they're paying on the county buildings? And the DEA person here said, raise our taxes.
Wait,
We have to raise our
Has the press left, please? No.
I said, I come up with a lot of questions, but if you wrote them all down, I hope you can answer some of them. But, you know, that's some of the things we gotta look at, you know. And if there's a spiritual thing to the American Indians here, I didn't know any Indians till I come here. I never knew any Hutterites till I come here either. So there's a lot of different things here. But if they're spiritual, then why don't they use their spiritual things? I know they use sweat lodges, and I've heard about all these things, to get these kids or to get the parents to stay together. You know, I mean, you know, I was raised 12 houses in the community I was in, and I was related to town. If I did anything wrong, I got my ass beat, okay? And my mom and dad knew about it before I got home. But it doesn't seem like that happens anymore. Nobody wants to say anything to anybody, you know, or piss anybody off like the gentleman in the back said, and I'm just quoting.
I'll say something real quick, and I'll pass it on. Okay, so I just want to, on the tax thing, I'm just saying that because it's going to be, it'll be another levy that's going to town, and that we're going to have to ante up. That's why I'm just throwing it out there, so it is what it is. I do not believe in raising taxes. I don't want my taxes to go up, but It is what it is.
I don't want to get into
No,
discussion.
no,
But
that's
what
right.
about the empty building?
Okay, so the empty buildings, I'm gonna have to pass that on because that's out of my lane. But going back, if you wanna really know, what I used to see when I went through that front door, I used to go on front doors, search warrants, restaurants, through the front door. Maybe there's one parent, maybe there's two parents. Maybe it's two parents and family members all sitting, shacked up in a house. And what we saw was the kids. We saw the kids sleeping on crap. Or we saw kids that should be in a crib, but there's so much junk in their crib because both parents are users. We see that. We have a breakdown of the family here in this community. What's it gonna take? What's it gonna take to turn that around? Y'all know the answer. And we can peel back that onion and it can get into a heated conversation. But yeah, the breakdown of the family is what we're dealing with right now. So I agree with you on that stuff, but we gotta figure out how to move forward. We have to figure out how to advance. Wait.
One more question.
Okay.
You're saying the breakdown of the family. When I watch media, TV shows, movies,
Rap music,
killing,
social media,
single family,
porn,
lies.
Pornhub.
Right.
Absolutely. You're preaching to, but the thing is, we have all that. And how do we put the genie back in the bottle? We ain't putting that genie back in the bottle. So we gotta figure out how to move forward now and start fixing it.
You better go to Hollywood.
So, right, but there's a whole thing of things. Buildings, passing this down to you.
So these empty buildings would probably work out great, but there are requirements that are federal and state. They're incredible. You have to have the food service. You have to have laundry, like that. Economy of scale says added on to the existing jail that we have right now. So especially the 72-hour, it's going to be 34 beds, 34 to 40 some beds. To try to go out and actually put those services in another building and meet all the requirements. It's crazy what the architect has to go through because there's all kinds of, you got to make sure that somebody can't commit suicide very easily. I mean, it should be just about impossible. All types of different issues like that it takes quite a bit to do that. And you got duplicative services if you end up having to put, administration over in another building where you already have it in one building as far as in process and everything else.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a couple more questions back here.
I just want to kind of put a pin on what you said. Look, I'm not going to dump on. I'm a single parent. My son is not committing any crimes that I know of, so I'm not dumping on single parents. What I would challenge us all to think about is, it's very comfortable to go, people just need to parent better and go home and never think about it again. And if we do that, nothing is going to change. So we can be mad that people aren't parenting. We can be mad that Hollywood sucks. We can do all of that and go home and have a warm meal in our warm houses and get up and nothing will have changed.
Yes.
We have a chance to try something different, and I'd encourage us to think about that opportunity.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Earlier, you talked about spirituality on native side. We do have all those, like everything we do, even a tribal court that brings people together, kind of best interests of the family and stuff. But the spirituality is that it's not something that we go to on Sundays. It's part of us every day. We were born into a clan. So when we go into public, even if we're here in Billings, if we see a clan father, clan mother, we show that respect by giving them gifts, buy their meal, and in return, they say whatever our clan fathers and clan mothers say on our behalf to the spiritual realm, they're the ones that speak on our behalf. So it's unbecoming for like a person to brag about themselves. They're the ones that brag, and we have songs that sing of praise. So we have all of that. It's our society, like we're living two worlds. We're Americans and then we're Native American on this side. So we do, still practice a lot of our spirituality. There is some non-natives that come and take part in our belief systems. I'll give you an example. One individual came and said, that's probably the first time I've ever felt so close to the Creator. Not God, not Jesus, it was to the Creator. And so it's, we do have a lot of those practice, the norms, mores, belief ways still in existence, still practiced today. But when we come into like Billings, it's still practiced. A lot of when we approach another Crow tribe member that speaks Crow, we speak Crow because it's a sign of respect. Like if I walked up to you, I would talk English to you. That's a sign of respect. I wouldn't talk Crow to you. And a lot of people believe that, they're making fun of us. They're talking about us. It's not the case. We're talking our language. It's who we are. If I know it's a Crow speaker, I'll speak Crow. And so it's a sign of respect when we're talking our language. Just like you guys speak English, everybody speaks English. And then so we have two languages, our Crow language and our English language. So it's that's why I said to know me is to respect me, and it works both ways.
Thank you.
Mine is more of a comment. My name is Samantha Mangold. I work with the AWARE Early Head Start here in Billings. And we actually are looking to spread community awareness about school readiness and what it means and what we're doing with these children and families and how we're supporting. So if anyone is interested, we are going to be giving tours, reaching out with pamphlets, I can come speak, any of those types of things. So we are looking to outreach in the community and get more people with our families and helping out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Dahl. My question is more of a fiscal standpoint. I know prohibitively there's a lot of people that want to put the marijuana genie back in the bottle and go back to that not being the case. The question that I've always had on this is, even if that is the case, if that does get voted in that direction, that goes back to being something that is illegal. In the present state, if this jail expansion is 3.3 million to 4 million, whatever that estimate is, and the Google estimate of tax revenue for Yellowstone County on a monthly basis is roughly $100,000 in tax revenue. When you look up the distribution of where those taxes go, the amount of money that actually goes back into Yellowstone County, into law enforcement, into jail facilities, into trying to stem any of this tide of crime that has resulted, out of that supposedly, you get 5 and 7% of that actually goes to it. Fish, Wildlife, and Parks gets 3 times that much, and all these other areas get all this money, but the money that's being generated by this thing that was voted for by the citizens of this community, we don't see any of it going into solving the problem that we need to be solved. And so to me, it's just ludicrous that our county can't negotiate that in some way with the state of Montana, is to say, look, we have a problem. We need to pay for this, jail facility, and there's a way that we can do it. Why aren't we getting a bigger cut of this? And I guess that is my question, is if in fact we're generating that amount of tax revenue, why aren't we seeing more of it? Put to work into, putting police officers on the street and putting it to use in our own backyard.
Thank you, and I'll let the county commissioner and the city councilperson.
Well, I'm actually going to throw it out to the audience and Representative Carrie Seekins Crow on why the legislature didn't give us the money. Oh, she is giving me a bad look.
Thank you, initiative, and I did vote for that.
A lot of it was the initiative, that's right. It actually designated on where a lot of that money was going. And that was part of the selling point in trying to get people to vote for it, which they still manipulated a little bit of money out of there, but there was a lot of that was in the initiative on where that money was going. The county is not getting $100,000 a month. I know that, I think we were at like 600,000 or 700,000. And I don't think the
city gets 370 is the estimate for the coming year.
370.
Total.
Okay. Total.
Total.
And I think we're about 700. So that probably ends up being about the million or whatever.
Okay.
To do it.
But the percentage that we would get, for law enforcement, do you guys have any idea, like what kind of income we get out of that figure for something of that nature to build a new jail facility or?
Well, it goes into our general fund, and we actually we have invested a lot more into mental health for our jail system. People that are getting out of the jail, we actually have some people now that are working with trying to have a soft handoff to the mental health center and different places like that. But we actually have a lot. We put, I think, about $300,000 or $400,000 into mental health services in the jail for people that are starting to get out. And that's not enough. We actually need more because we have so many people in there with mental health issues. We put money into the community crisis center and all types of, and the mental health center also. So we are putting money into these different programs. The city's actually doing it also. I'll pass it off and then she can talk about.
So I think what Donna said is right, and I'm gonna kind of cast my eyes over to our mayor and city administrator, and they're gonna frown if I say something wrong. But, so the portion of tax revenue that comes back to local governments is relatively small, and it gets portioned out. So the county gets a portion of it, and the 3 incorporated communities, so Billings, Laurel, and Broadview, get a portion of the marijuana revenue. But I can do, small. But what I can tell you is what we're doing with it here in the city of Billings, and we're putting it exactly towards those sorts of things. So the facility, I just want to be clear, a jail expansion is not $4 to $5 million. A jail expansion is tens, if not $100 million or more. What we have proposed, what the city and county are working on right now, is a short-term pre-arraignment facility to return the ability for our officers to arrest and detain people, particularly to interrupt a cycle of crime. What our officers are experiencing is they're encountering the same people multiple times in a night. So what we want to do is give them the ability to arrest and detain overnight until they see a judge, and then they'll likely be released on pretrial monitoring. But there's an immediate consequence, and there's a stop to the cycle of violence. So we are, what we have proposed in helping to fund this to the county, that is a portion of the marijuana revenues. That is what we're using it for. We've also used a portion to fund crisis response units, so that when people are having behavioral, mental health, substance abuse crisis, we're sending both a paramedic and a social worker to respond to that, freeing up our police officers to not spend 3 or 4 hours trying to de-escalate that situation, but putting actual trained professionals who can respond to that. That's a portion of your marijuana dollars who are going to that. So what we have done at the city level, there's a little bit of it that is going to help build the Law and Justice Center at the new City Hall, but the overwhelming portion has been combined with the 2 mills that the public voted on in the last public safety mill levy for substance abuse and mental health. We've combined that with marijuana revenues to focus on those sorts of resources. That's what the city of Billings is doing. Bill, Chris, did I miss anything that you want to? Okay. So that's what we're doing here, but it's a small portion of money.
Got it. Thank you.
There's I know the city and county talk about, building a jail and, having to look for revenue or look for money to do it. But the Crow tribe purchased a piece of land right on Old 87. It used to be the Hairpin Ranch. It's on fee. It's in Yellowstone County. Belongs to the tribe. Doesn't have to go through all the federal bureaucratic red tape. The land is like 1,900 acres. If you work with the Crow tribe, a tribe could go into the federal, get some federal dollars. So it'd be a city, county, tribe, and the state of Montana, kind of a 4. I think we could achieve it if you work. And it's not, basically it's on a reservation. It's in Yellowstone County, but it's fee land. So we pay county taxes on it. It's 1,900 acres. Same with Blue Creek, it's the same way. It sits in Yellowstone County on a Crow reservation. So federal funding could be engaged in this. So it's not just city and county, but the tribe, because majority of the people that are probably in these jails are probably native. So I think that's why the part of this solution would be to work with the tribe, not tribes, but the Crow tribe, because they're, the southern border of Billings is the Crow tribe, the eastern border of Billings is Crow tribe. So it'd be just makes sense to work together because we do own land in those areas, and we could also walk with you into, the senator's office and say, we're gonna be going after these grants and working on federal dollars to achieve this, so that's.
Very good, thank you. We're out of time. If you want to engage with the panelists, you may do that after the meeting. We sure appreciate you guys coming. Very, very much, thank you.